agriculture. What's the problem if your main export is, and your main kind of bread and butter way of generating revenue is crops, or growing crops?
You could have a bad season, the economy could...
You can have a bad season or a famine, the economy can collapse. We're going to see this when we look at the South later in the year, because this is going to happen. What about the effects of the geography on culture? Think about Costa Rica. Because it's a small country, 4.5 million people, but it's not a cultural monolith, meaning that not everybody's the same. I mean, no place really is a cultural monolith. The difference between people in the Pacific versus the Atlantic, the campesinos versus the Central Valley, is quite profound. How has climate influenced that, and geography?
We have life campesinos are used to be outside of their houses.
Rural areas.
Like
you can grow crops in towns.
So campesine people in the agricultural zones are more... How would you describe people in the agricultural zones?
I mean, they're...
More simple?
Practical.
Maybe more practical? What about their views on the world, the outside world?
Yes, they're humble.
Okay, they're humble.
And they have like less of an opinion because they're like less informed.
Less informed, maybe less educated in terms of like education as far as schooling. But they can grow. I mean, remember we talked about when eventually the artificial intelligence takeover occurs and we all die because they turn off the power grid. The campesinos are going to be the ones who live because they know how to grow papaya. Remember? We talked about this last class.
Grow papaya.
Mr. Caprella.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Think about specifically Limon. This is the most culturally unique place in Costa Rica. And the climate and geography is a huge reason for it. Because the climate and geography stimulated economic activity, which basically took this particular region and turned it into something that stands out next to the rest of Costa Rica. It's very unique. I mean, the only people there speak Spanish now, but they still, many families don't speak Spanish within their own homes, though they've been here for 100 years. Right? Yeah. Houses?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the typical because they're like standing on sticks. So
they're on stilts, maybe, for the tide.
Lots of windows.
Or open air. It's less developed. It's okay. Think about the people, their culture. Who lives in Limon? Afro-Caribbean people. Black people. Right? How many black people are in school here? Where are we? In the Central Valley. How many black students do we have? None. Right? How did these people, give me the background information. How did they end up in Limon? How did these Afro-Caribbean people end up in Limon? Were they brought here as slaves?
Yeah. Yes, to build the railroad.
No, they weren't brought here as slaves.
Well, not slaves, but workers.
They were brought to places like Jamaica and St. Vincent as slaves. They were encouraged to immigrate and migrate here for economic opportunity. Dominican? No, Dominican? Or you said Jamaica? Yeah, Jamaica, sure, absolutely. But for me, being an outsider, not knowing, never having visited, I was very shocked because I went to Limon the first time, and walking around and I saw Afro-Caribbean Costa Ricans talking to other Afro-Caribbean Costa Ricans, not tourists, and they weren't speaking Spanish. They were speaking English and Patois, right? And this is 100 years, you know, more or less 100 years since they really started to come in great numbers, early 1900s, right? But what drove their immigration? Okay, building the railroads. What else?
Economic opportunity.
What are they growing in Limon? Bananas. Right? It's huge kind of influx, and you're going to see this in the northern part of the United States because of the Industrial Revolution. There's going to be a huge influx of immigrants and a lot more diversity than you're going to have in the South. Now things have kind of leveled out, but originally, historically speaking, the South is much more monolithic than the North. And it's because of the economic situation, the impact of economy on culture, right? We're going to get in the North immigrants from Poland, Italy, Ireland, Jews. And those people certainly exist in the South too, but in far fewer numbers, in much fewer numbers. All right, to do your little quiz now, your little entrance ticket quiz, split a piece of paper in half with your neighbor. You're going to have to write 2 paragraphs. Anybody want Mexican candy?
No, I want it. Do you have more?
What's going on? So try to do this quickly. Where's your paper?
It's gotta go.
And I want everything else off your desk, guys. Everything. Your name.
Are you gonna see the game tonight, Mr. Captain?
What game?
Se empieza la liga. The semifinal con dos partidos.
Okay, so Fernand, can you get everything on your desk, please? So there's going to be two questions here.
Is this of the reading or of the video?
I'll explain it once. Okay. There's going to be. Okay, that's hilarious. There's a piece of paper. There's going to be two questions. They have to do with the reading, of course. They're very straightforward. Use specifics in your answer. I've been grading them so far, and people aren't doing very well, even though they're very broad questions. People aren't doing terribly, but you know, a lot of 70s. I was hoping for a lot of hundreds. Answer the questions, but use specifics to support your answer. Okay. You should have a general idea of this from the reading and what we've already talked about in the development between North and South. So, you're going to give you 8 minutes to do this, about 4 minutes on each side. Questions are, 1. Explain one way that the North developed uniquely from the South, and one innovation that encouraged that development. Innovation could be an individual technological advancement, like in invention, or an entire kind of paradigm shift, like in the ways we produce things, a big social change, for example. Secondly, explain one way the South developed uniquely from the North, and one innovation that encouraged that development, or drove, I should say, that development. So basically you're answering the same question twice. First one focusing on the North, second one focusing on the South.
The answer is the same paragraph.
No, I want two separate paragraphs. One side, first, number 1, the North, number 2, the South. Yes? Huh? Uh-huh. The who?
Yes, but I also have a question. I have the advancement that I write on the North, but I don't remember what was the name of the road in the South.
It's not, that's not the answer. Anyway, so don't worry about the name of it because that's not correct. You guys use specifics, you're not going to get full credit without the specifics. Okay. But if you're doing the readings, you should do it. And it is exactly 1:27, so in 8 minutes, I'll be collecting. 4 minutes for each side. It's a paragraph. You should be able to write a paragraph in 4 minutes. So at 1:35. This thing over here. Can't really do it. There we go. I can't tell. 10 for assessment, 5 and 5. Four more minutes, halfway point. Let's see. Two more minutes, wrap it up. Two minutes. One minute.